Slow isn't necessarily bad. We know from the work of Daniel Kahneman and others that slow, deliberate cognitions tend to be more accurate than snap judgments. Another part of the story is that older adults show increases in impulse control. So if there's a red button lying around that might launch a war, you want to have good impulse control. Older adults tend to be better at empathy and problem solving. They see the big picture faster and better. Not every older adult. These are statistical averages.
Understood. All right, Allison, what would you add to that? It sounds like the answer to the question, though, is that's not the full story. What would you add?
It's not. Yeah, I'd say it's absolutely not the full story, and there's really trade-offs. So you might get slower at some things, you might get faster at other things, and you're also accumulating more and more and more knowledge throughout your lifetime, and you're better able to sort of integrate all of that together and understand how, as Daniel said, the big picture kind of fits together. So we've actually done studies in our lab where we've done experiments showing not even just in sort of the metaphorical terms of the big picture, but in physical terms, the big picture. Sometimes older people can actually see, they don't actually see the fine details as well, but they can see the big picture better and they respond to that big picture faster. So it's definitely not just a story of a decline. And we also know that the older brain can rewire itself in some ways to compensate for weaknesses as we're getting older. So there's a lot of what's called plasticity in the brain. So as some parts might start to not work as well, other parts can take over. So it's not just an all or nothing headed toward decline story anymore.
And we have talked to Norman Deutsch on this program about that very subject. Natasha, let's do the deeper dive here on one of the age-old stereotypes, which is our memory definitely gets worse as we get older. True or false?
It depends, will be my answer, because memory is not this unified construct that people think of. There's many types of memory, many different types of memory systems and different brain regions that are implicated in our ability to form and do mnemonic tasks or memory tasks. So I think when people think that memory declines with age, what they're thinking about is episodic memory, a type of memory system that's dependent on the hippocampus and the frontal lobes, and our ability to recollect past experiences in rich detail. So, what did you have for breakfast yesterday or 3 days ago? Things like that. People, when they can't remember that, they're like, oh, my memory is declining. But that's not the only type of memory. Our memory for facts and knowledge actually might increase with age as we get more and more exposure in day-to-day life experiences. Our implicit memory, so our memory for learning how to, play the piano, our ability to swim, all those kinds of memories remain relatively intact in healthy aging. So it's not as though all forms of memory decline. Some types do decline, and they start to decline much earlier in midlife. So it's not an older adult only situation, and they're influenced by many factors such as stress, attention ability. So it's not necessarily a memory problem that you're seeing either.